Hey friends, welcome to this week's American Mussar Community Gathering. This week we are going to be focusing on the soul trait of trust, as in trust in the divine, which honestly is one of the more challenging traits, but I like to cover it early because it's also a really powerful trait. And because it's hard, we might as well start practicing early. So our skills and our trust muscle can grow over time. So I invite you all to relax and take in a deep breath through the nose and hold, and exhale through the mouth and hold. And inhale through the nose and hold, and exhale through the mouth and hold. And as you go at your own pace of inhaling through the nose and holding, and exhaling through the mouth and holding. If thoughts should come into your head, just observe them and let them pass. Like watching a car pass by on the road. Now is not the time for solving problems. Right now, all you need to do is inhale through the nose and hold, and exhale through the mouth and hold. And on your next inhale, say to yourself, Shema. And on the exhale, listen. Shema, listen. In Shema, we're listening deeply, without judgment, without offering advice. In Shema, we are listening with an open heart. Shema, listen. And when you're ready, you may open your eyes. Huh, that's interesting. On the chat, it has the chat from last week too, which is kind of interesting. Okay, so to get started today, first I wanted to just talk about the schedule of upcoming weeks. Um, I have a lot of I have a Hanukkah party next week, and then I'm going to be traveling. So our next meeting is going to be on. I am so sorry. I have pulled up the wrong PowerPoint. So the next meeting is going to be January 8th. That was the long road to get there, but yeah. So we'll have a little bit of a hiatus, a little bit longer than usual, but I will miss you, and we'll look forward to seeing you in a few weeks. So the prior 2 weeks, we were looking at enthusiasm and alacrity, and had some absolutely dynamite discussions and conversations. And I'm wondering, in the last week, how did this trait show up for you? Or was it easier for you to get started with tasks or finish tasks? Or perhaps Musar showed up in another way? So we'll give a chance for a bit of a check-in. Yes, Martin.
To me, the deadlines and things to do were unchanged, but I felt a lot more relaxed and having confidence that they will be accomplished. So being more relaxed.
Fabulous. Thank you so much. Yes, Bonnie.
So I serve on a national Jewish board, and in the middle of the board meeting last night, the there's someone who's doing board activities, and she put us into groups and asked us what was our goal for the next year. And I've been working, and she asked us for the board and our own personal goal. And Sarah's going to sit here and laugh at me, but I am working really, really hard not to be putting 10 pounds into a 5 pound bag.
Hmm.
And I've taken myself without plate off a board and off chairing a committee, and I didn't put anything else in its place. And I've narrowed the focus of what I'm doing, which is basically all on Jewish legacy giving, um, and annual campaigns. Um, but it's a very strange feeling not to say, well, I'm going off of this board so I can do this.
Hmm.
So tasks, yes, having more time for me.
Hmm. That's wonderful. Yeah, one of the quotes we looked at last week was something to the effect of if you focus your mind on one thing, you will be zealous in its execution. And sometimes, if we're focused on too many things, we can start to feel like that peanut butter that got spread just a little bit too thin. So, what I'm hearing is you're trying to, yeah, kind of have a little bit more focus, and this just not having too much. Thank you so much for sharing that. Yes, Eileen.
Sorry about that.
No worries.
All I can say is that I was spurred on to just do it.
Mm,
Um, I think that in the maybe past months, I've had a tendency to see something that needs to be done and think I will do it, but I don't do it then.
mm,
And so I started thinking about alacrity, and I had a good time if something was in front of me, just doing it,
mm,
and also not relying on somebody else just to do it.
mm. Wonderful. How did that feel for you
It
to do that?
felt good.
Great.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for sharing. Okay, anybody else? Going once, Guy, we can only see the very top of your head. I don't know if there's a way to adjust where your camera is. There you go. That is much better. Thank you. All right, well, let's take it a little bit deeper. So you may recall from years ago or from the last couple years, the last couple meetings, that we've been returning to exploring some of the different assumptions for the American Mussar practice. And may I have someone unmute, please, and read this third bullet, which is in bold.
I can read it.
Thank you. Thanks, Sue.
We are driven by the conflict between the evil inclination and the good inclination.
Thank you so much. As a reminder, the Hebrew terms for these are the Yetzer Hara and the Yetzer Hatov. And the Yetzer Hatov corresponds to our compassion for the social parts of our brain, for the need, to help others and feel compassion. The Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, is not a great translation. It was kind of the best one I knew at the time, but it's also been called the hostile impulse or the selfish impulse. And it incorporates a lot of essential elements of who we are, like ambition, um, being self centered, survival instincts, fears, things along those lines. And without it, we would not be fully human. And the idea is that um, we have both of these impulses, and it's very related to this concept. I see Marjorie. We'll get you in just a sec. I like your haircut, by the way. Um, uh, so we have these competing impulses, and we are often faced with choices whether we want to follow kind of the evil inclination or the good inclination. So Marjorie, if you could remember to unmute.
Unmute, yep.
Gotcha.
So just a really small interjection here with the Yetzer Ra. In Kabbalah, it's referred to as the animal instinct,
Oh.
which sometimes it really is a necessary, I think you did say survival.
Mhm.
It's not always bad, but it does necessitate, there are certain things that like survival and staying safe, those types of things. So that's kind of how I look at it now, not necessarily, that little devil on my shoulder.
Right.
That's all.
Right. Peter.
Yeah, I mean, I think it has to do with context. And there's times when, survival instinct is appropriate, and there's times when it's not. Um,
Absolutely. There was a story in the Talmud where the rabbis trapped the Yetzer Hara, and they were like, okay, great, we've conquered evil. But then they found out that the chickens stopped laying eggs, and nobody went to work anymore, and nobody fixed their roof. And so they needed to free it from captivity in order for the world to function correctly. There's also, and I wrote about this in the book, this fabulous episode of the original Star Trek called The Enemy Within, where there's a transporter accident. Captain Kirk gets split into a good Kirk and evil Kirk. And it's really right out of, it corresponds almost perfectly to the Yetzer Hara and Yetzer Hatov. Nico.
I was about to mention that Star Trek episode.
Oh.
I'm a huge Trekkie. I work on the translation of the new Star Trek, so I'm doing it right now. Like I interrupted that work to do the Mussar.
So that's like what you do professionally?
Yes.
Oh my goodness, that is cool. I'm so sorry I preempted you from sharing.
No, it made me think of that too, of that inclination and true in that episode. And I think they refer to it in another episode later in another series where there's no, without that fighting impulse, yes, there's no rash decision, there's no aggressivity, but there's nothing done anymore. And there's no saving the rest of the crew without that. I also wanted to point out, I really like the new translations that you pointed out. Again, I'm a translator by trade, so the different interpretations that are carried in the translation speak a lot to me. And I really like hostile impulse and selfish impulse much more than evil inclination.
Yeah.
Because I think evil inclination tends to personalize that instinct and take it out of us and give
froze.
Uh-oh. Nico's frozen. Well, I just
if you
want to
see what
say
I
hi
mean.
to Faye, who just joined us, and I think this might be your first time, so welcome. Thanks for being here. Nico, you froze for just a second. We heard you say tits to take it out of us, and then you froze.
Yes. Oh, sorry. I was saying, talking about the evil inclination and the little devil in the shoulder tends to take it out of us. And then to me, I think it's not really as helpful as hostile impulse or selfish impulse, which are very internalized. So it makes me take more responsibility when I look at it that way than when I think of evil inclination. Oh, it's my evil inclination. Nothing I can do about it.
Right, right. Yeah, thank you. Peter.
Yeah, I'm just with you. What you're saying is, without bad, there'd be no good, right? I
It's a
I don't
little bit
know if
more
I'm asking
complicated
it.
than that because that's very philosophical. But I think it's like without this particular impulse, we could not function properly in the world. Um,
Okay, I'll buy that.
sorry, I didn't quite catch that. You do or don't buy that?
No, I do buy it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I also liked the term Marjorie shared about the animal impulse because if you map kind of the different traits associated with the Yetzer Tov and the Yetzer Ra to the human brain, the Yetzer Ra, the hostile impulse or the animal impulse, they all map to the reptilian brain, and which is the most ancient part of the brain associated with survival, and the good impulse, those map to the prefrontal cortex, the uniquely human part of the brain. And those two parts of the brain literally compete for what drives our behavior. So the way the rabbis teach this, and I agree, is that we want our Yetzer Ra to be guided by the Yetzer Tov. You know, it's not terrible to have ambition, but if you're only driven by unbridled ambition, that's where we get into trouble. You know, sexuality is not a problem, but unbridled sexual impulses is where we can get into trouble. Okay, so with all of this as background, let's start to talk about trust. Let's see. So the Hebrew word for this is bitachon. I love this definition from Rabbi David Jaffe. May I have a volunteer to unmute and read these two bullets?
I can read it, I think.
Okay.
Bitachon, trust, may be one of the most difficult soul traits to acquire. Cultivating bitachon. Trust means moving towards balancing trust in a loving God or a reliable universe. God. With, maybe I can't read it. With taking initiative. You never have to believe something you actually don't believe to grow in bitachon trust. It's Rabbi David Jaffe. If you're unsure of the divinity, you can think of it as trust in the universe, or trust that doing the right thing will work out okay in the end.
Thank you, Marjorie. Um, yeah, so what is this talking about? And I'm imagining if this is a newer idea to you, this may be a little bit opaque. But let's unpack it. I'm going to stop the share and I'll put these comments in the chat. And while I'm doing that, you can gather your thoughts because before we even decide whether we agree or disagree, let's make sure we all understand like what the basic point is here. Yes, Sue.
So I kind of like what it says, a balance, of course, that's what we're striving for in Mussar. And it says between, what I read was taking initiative,
Hmm.
and then the trusting part, like when do I let go? How much do I do? And how much do I let go and everything's going to be okay?
Hmm.
How much do I plan for something or I was just thinking I was actually just talking about that with Margie today about I kept planning ahead and we were talking about well maybe just live in the moment do because I was getting overwhelmed with too many things and so I thought well that's a good idea I should just focus on the to do today or Haneni here I am
Yeah.
and I guess there's a trust there right that if I don't do it, it'll work out in the end. So that was my thought.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good illustration. It's like, I don't need, yeah, that was well said. Questions, other thoughts, or other ways that you can relate to or can't relate to this?
I have a comment.
Okay.
Um, the sentence, you never have to believe something you actually don't believe in to grow in trust. I think that's really interesting
Hmm.
because how can I trust something if I'm not sure about it? And now, as I say this out loud, I guess it's sort of like it's almost like you can't change something that hasn't happened yet. You just sort of like have to have faith that, it's out there, it's going to go whatever course it's going to go, whether or not I believe in it. Um, and I'll see in the end what happens.
What do you think he's referring to? Like, I think he's referring to one thing in
Maybe,
particular.
probably something divine,
Yeah.
divinity. Okay.
Yeah.
But even people that are atheists, let's say, I suppose by saying that they don't believe in God, they're actually subliminally thinking, well, if I don't believe in something that I can define, that I can put a word onto it, then maybe I still somehow believe in it. I I don't know. I
We'll hear
just
from we'll hear from
interesting his
Martin and then Karen. Yeah, because um, traditionally the Mussar writers usually say something like, "Well, Bitachon is based on faith in God, and faith isn't something that I isn't the soul trait that I teach, and I don't believe that you need to have that in order to grow in this soul trait." So similar to what Rabbi Jaffe said, but it's worth unpacking a bit. So let's see what Martin and then Karen have to add.
Yeah, if I believe in something, I mean, so if I trust something, trust, but don't believe in what I'm thinking about, I guess I just call that just blind faith
Hmm.
rather than visual faith.
Yeah, so I definitely think kind of at an extreme, this could be sort of like a blind faith or trust. So I see we have Karen and then Eileen.
So for me, it's pretty much a blind faith trust, but it runs in the background, like a loop. It's always there. And so I live my life making choices as if I might have some control or that God's given me the opportunity to make choices and see how life turns out. And that whether it turns out in a way that I am happy about or not happy about, I pretty much believe that that's what's supposed to happen at that moment in time. And I cling very tightly to where good can follow good, it can also follow bad. And when bad can become worse, it can also be followed by good. So this trust in God is just a loop in the background that allows me to manifest however I want it, however I see best each day, and assume that things are going to work out the way they're supposed to. That's kind of my trust in God. That is my trust in God.
Thank you, Karen. And would you say that this impacts your stress level with living in the world, kind of having that loop in the background?
Absolutely. It does make it easier. If I'm getting overwhelmed, then I'm like, okay, I truly believe there's another force there. And, if you get overwhelmed, you need to pivot, you need to step back. Um, and it doesn't mean that God is taking over and fixing it. It's just that I have this faith that maybe it's okay to take that step back and we'll see what happens. Because whatever it is probably meant to happen. And I don't know what will follow, but I'm curious to see what it is. It does reduce the stress level somewhat, especially if I'm really overwhelmed. I'm like, okay, I'm not really throwing my hands up. It's just from experience, let's see what happens now. I've done as much as I think I can do on my own, and I'm going to let the chips fall where they may and pivot. And I kind of feel like there's something in the background that has, propelled me to keep moving, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
I feel like there's an energy there. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it does. When I want to throw my hands up, I'm like, I know I'm not really alone, but it's time to do this.
Yeah. Well, some of you may remember that I used to wear a little Hamsa bracelet, and a Hamsa is like the little hand. It's very popular in Israel, and it's also in a lot of other New Age cultures as well, also in Arab cultures in the Middle East. And so I would, one way that I sometimes think about this is, I believe that the divine is always there to hold my hand. And sometimes, I would like, when I would get stressed, I would just kind of hold on to, the little hand on the Hamsa. And again, we may all believe really different things. This might be too supernatural for you, and that's okay. But it's also an attitude about, well, just how does the universe operate? Do most things really come out okay? Or is it, if I am not super on top of everything at every moment, it's all going to fall apart? Michael.
I come at this a little bit differently. I do believe in God, but I come at this a little bit differently. Whether it's God or the universe or whatever it is, this is a reminder to me that I'm not it. So I have to stop and let go, irrespective of what else is on the other end. And else on the other end might be nothing, but that still doesn't make me God. It doesn't matter what else is out there. I'm not it. So I need to stop myself, because me trying to control people, places, and things that I cannot control is never going to work. So I don't care about the belief piece at the other end, even though I believe personally, because that's not the message I need to hear. The message I need to hear is stop your own madness.
Yeah. Thank you. That's really powerful because, yeah, there is so much in the world we can't control. And what do you do with that? Do you try to control it? Well, as you say, that way lies madness. And we'll look at the spectrum after we finish this discussion, because that's also a part of this. Toby.
My mom used to say something that I found very helpful later in life, although at the time I didn't find it particularly helpful. If I would go to her with a problem and, wah, 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 whatever, about whatever, she would say, well, what part of that do you have control over? Is there any part of this particular problem that your actions can have some input into? And sometimes there was, and sometimes there wasn't. But it made me think about what I have control of, which I've discovered in my old age is pretty much not a whole hell of a lot. So, and that may be just me. I don't mean to throw shade on anybody else, but what I've discovered in complex problems is that there's a lot of these things that I don't have control of. I may have input, and I may be able to do whatever it is that I can do. But at some certain point in the process, I have to realize that, okay, from here on, I don't have control of this situation.
Yeah.
And that knowing that or being aware of that or understanding that, whatever, appreciating that, makes it easier for me to go, well, I can't control that. So why am I sitting here stewing about it or Googling about it or going down a rat hole somewhere in, social media land or whatever. And that really helps for me to deal with the day-to-day sorts of things. What things can I control and what things can't I control?
Yeah, thank you, Toby. And that is, and we'll go to Eileen. And where I'm hearing a lot of you going is that it's almost like a coping tool, which is again why I think it's really important and really powerful to kind of work on this trait, even though it's also kind of perplexing and may get into uncomfortable ground theologically. But we don't need to have any theology connected to this to adopt this mindset. Eileen.
Yeah, I wanted to, I guess, get away from God for 1 second, and focus on this one sentence. You never have to believe in something you actually don't believe to grow in trust. And I'm kind of a person who had a hard time trusting that things would be okay. And I got a lot of messages that were basically saying, just trust, just trust. And what I learned was that I had to trust myself before I could trust others. And so I think this thing, you can grow in trust by, even if you're don't trust, and then gradually growing into trust, which is just maybe another level of looking at it, because I think it does work with God as well. What I've been hearing, but I think it can certainly work with your own inherent sense of trust in the world.
Yeah, thank you, Eileen. And I really appreciate you sharing your experience with that. And sometimes I'm not saying this is your situation, but sometimes we find ourselves in really unfair situations, or we trust in something and then something terrible happens. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, and or we have to be extremely cautious about everything because of, as a defense, something in order to keep ourselves safe. And yeah, and now you remind me of another way I've heard of thinking about this, which can be, I trust that whatever happens, I will be able to deal with it. And okay, so we have Sue and then Karen.
That great comment reminded me of the physical trust, because I always think when I think about trust, I think about the exercise where you fall back and people catch you, the trust, or fall forward, whatever, and you have to trust. And I think about that as more of a fear that I have. So what the comment about trusting yourself first, I think is really important. And then also another thing, I'm a juggler, but I'm still working on juggling fire, and there's a trust factor in there. I mean, it's just an example of I have to trust that I'm not going to hurt myself. And so the safety of that gets in the way of the trust of, the physical trusting. So I think there's a lot of instances for me that the physical, or I think about learning how to dive in a swimming pool when I was a kid. It took me a long time because I had to trust that I wasn't going to crack my, head or something. So I think about that as maybe that's trusting myself to do these things.
Yeah.
And that's really important. And the balance between the safety, can I let go and it's going to be okay.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay, Karen and then Barbara.
So we haven't mentioned this yet, but for me, the trust issue is between myself and a greater force, that blind faith, trust, that loop in the background does not in any way diminish my capacity to give my all while I'm living and to do things. This is not a walk in the park, like, whatever I try or do or don't do, God's going to have my back.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think about that. And I just want to throw that out there because I hadn't heard that before. For me, blind faith is not, I'm going to be okay no matter what. It's that I have a purpose here and I need to take responsibility for things and I need to take initiative. And I can make choices, but when I need to throw my hands up, I have a support
Yeah.
from the universe.
Thanks, Karen. Barbara.
I think for me the trust comes from really being reflective about my life. I've gotten to the age that I've gotten to, and when I look at the things that I could control, the things that I couldn't control, where life has taken me, I start to figure out that all you can do is what you've got in your, with what you have in the moment. And there does have to be a certain amount of trust that you just have to move forward. And after a while, you start to realize that as long as you kept moving forward, things worked out how they were going to work out. And sometimes they worked out awful. But I mean, you were talking about your hamster jewelry. I have a little ring. I have a hamster ring, but I also have a little ring that I just bought recently that says in Hebrew, "This too shall pass." Because that's also the case that, in the general scheme of things, life continues no matter what. And there's a certain amount of trust that you can take the next step. You've always been able to take the next step. And I think that trust comes from experience. But the other thing that it made me think of was that it's a Martin Luther King quote that the arc of history bends towards justice. But even if he trusted in that idea, it didn't stop him from actively pursuing the justice that he was looking to earn. So you just have to keep going. And the trust is remembering what you've been through and seeing that all of those outcomes got you where you are, that's going to continue to happen.
Yeah. Thank you, Barbara. I love that you've kind of brought in the other side of the equation, which is we have to do our part. It's not like, all right, just take my seatbelt off. I'm good. I'm going to trust I'm going to be okay. It's like, no, that's not the way this works. The world will not sort itself out. So let's see. I saw Carolyn's hand and then Martin and then Peter.
Well, I'm not sure if this is totally related, but I was thinking about the importance of be here now, the importance of being in the moment, not shrinking from if when something difficult or hard comes, be there, and it will pass eventually. And when you're in the moment and there's something wonderful and joyous, be there for that. But also know that it too will pass. So, and that all of those experiences, if we truly are there, we're learning, we're growing, and we have this sense of the continuum. So we can hold on to that wonderful thing, and the bad thing will also eventually.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that's related, but that's what
sounds related to me. So thank you. So Martin, and then we're going to start heading towards our breakout rooms.
Yeah, continuing the comment Barbara was making about trust when a situation happens that could be worrisome. What I know that helps me is that if I have a situation that seems new and wondering, geez, is it going to work out okay? What I find helpful is that to remembering from situations in the past that might be similar to basically the question, if there's a situation I ask myself, is this familiar? And if I could see that, oh yeah, this is familiar to this other situation, I asked how to work out, it worked out fine. So it helps give me the trust that then the current strength or stress will work out. So familiarity with the past, I think, helps me produce trust in the future.
Yeah, thank you, Martin. Um, yeah, you and Barbara both touched on the experience piece, which definitely helps. Okay, so I'm going to call a little bit of an audible here. And for our breakout rooms, I'd like us to talk about the spectrum of trust a little bit. The mantra that I like is trust in God, but tie your camel. And this comes from a saying from the Arab world, trust in Allah, but tie your camel. And you know, camel, you don't tie it, is going to run off. And it's not God's job. And this is all, of course, a metaphor to keep your camel taken care of. But at the same time, if you use 8 ropes tying your camel in place, that's going to cause a lot of extra stress for you and suffering for the animal. And so if we have too little trust, we can really get into a place of fear. And some of you talked about that. And then too much trust, we kind of started to talk about at the end about the Martin Luther King quote, where we can be kind of reckless or almost complacent with things, depending on how you play that. So I would just like to maybe talk, with your partner a little bit about trust, this idea of the spectrum. Do you tend to be kind of on the too little or the too much side? Maybe your feedback on, what trust in God but tie your camel means to you. So I'm going to open the rooms. Just click the join room. I will stop the recording. Okay, everyone, welcome back.
That's fun music.
I like that little music.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was weird.
It
That was
was
nice.
Not bad.
Is that you, Rabbi?
I don't know. I was.
One of my friends, I'm sorry. Special ringtone for crazy people.
Okay.
Sounded very,
Very
Middle
Jewish.
Eastern.
yeah, it did sound Jewish. Yeah.
Sounded very
Feel free to dance.
I was listening to. I'm a big fan of Pink, the musician Pink, and she has this song Trust Fall, which I woke up this morning and I'm like, oh, I want to listen to Trust Fall. So I was listening to that as I was getting my bathrobe on. And then it just occurred to me when we were talking earlier, it's like, oh, wow, that's very connected to like what we're talking about. So I don't know if it was some subconscious connection. But,
She's Jewish.
so,
Did you know that? Pink
did
is
not-
Jewish.
Oh, really?
Yep.
There we go. So she's channeling, and I was listening to it during the break. So I was like, wait, that isn't what I was listening to? And so anyway, we only have a couple minutes left, but we have time for a speed round of hearing from just a couple of people. If you want to share any insights that you had. I also want to give Faye a chance. You do not need to talk at all, but we have not heard from you today. So no need to, yes, I'm putting you on the spot. I apologize. But if you would like to say something, you may. And if not, that's okay.
Oh, I just think that we all have similar ideas about what faith is. We just express them differently. And I think the key is to actually embrace it all and not try to define what somebody else's, like whether somebody else is like thinking like you or not. It's like we all have different perspectives and different ways of interacting with the universe, with other people, and that to me, it's more of you just really have to trust in yourself and overcome any fears that you have so that you can actually see that other person and hear that other person and know how you want to interact with them. Because I think the only way you can really influence the universe is to understand who you're interacting with. So, you can talk to somebody maybe the way that you talk to yourself, but it may not be how somebody else will, can receive it the same way, that they're not going to hear it the way maybe you want. So I think it's really about you have to go with your conscience, and you have to realize when you've done everything that you can, and then kind of move on and not stress about it and not play it out in your head for days at a time, because it robs you of moving on and being present in the sequel, whatever that is. So
Thank you, Faye. Well said. And we'll hear from Peter, and then we'll do our closing meditation.
I think faith and trust are linked. And faith is based on experience. So the experiences that give you faith also give you trust. And I think that the experience that I find leads me to trusting God is the feeling of awe.
Yeah, we will be getting to awe in a couple of months, but that's the feeling that we've all felt, I hope, at one point or another. There is just something bigger, whether that's Yosemite or a physics equation, or, it comes different places for different people. Okay, friends, so let's close our eyes once again as we close our sacred space for today and for this year. So once again, take in a nice leisurely inhale and a nice leisurely exhale. And whether you've been coming here for a day or for years, let's just take a moment of gratitude for the people who are here today with us, sharing this journey. And let's take a moment of gratitude for ourselves, for being willing to ask these questions, to explore who we are and their place in the universe. And when you're ready, you may open your eyes.